3, 2, 1.
Good night, everyone. We're back again with another episode of Carlene and Jaime. We're super excited to be back in this space as we continue the conversation on life beyond or purpose beyond the pulpit. And so we hope that you all have enjoyed the first two installations of Jaime's, I guess, tell all about him leading pastoral ministry. So we're back again with a pre-recorded message for all of you tonight. And so we're going to go ahead and get right into the conversation because we realize that there's just so much more to talk about, and we want to make sure that we talk about it or talk about it as much as we can. So I guess I'm going to first ask you, Jaime, how are you?
I'm good. First of all, thank you for asking that question, but I'm good. What's today? Thursday? No, Wednesday. Today's Wednesday, right? We don't. All right, I'm sorry. Today is the day. And I'm feeling good and everything's all right. And I'm all right. How was your week been?
My week pretty good. I got out a little bit earlier every day this week, so really excited for that. It's just amazing how that half hour makes the difference, and just getting home a half hour early. So it was pretty legit.
Yeah. I like having you home a half hour earlier.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you can't always come home a half hour earlier. If the parents are picking the kids up at that time, they just come a half hour earlier, but that's another conversation.
Correct.
For another day.
Correct. All right, let's just go ahead and jump right into continuing the conversation on why you left, and now we're basically focusing this conversation on purpose beyond the pulpit.
Mm-hmm. Finding purpose beyond the pulpit.
Finding purpose beyond the pulpit. Thank
right.
you. All right. So once you left, once you handed in your resignation, it became official that you are no longer working for a conference. How did you feel? Did you feel relief, grief, or something in between?
Oh man, so you know that answer. That answer is relief. It was relief because it was something that I always wanted to do. So it wasn't like it was, this was something that was in the workings like last month or last week. This was just something that had been building up for quite a while. So yes, there was a sense of relief. I think I'm still in that, I think maybe like last week or the week before was kind of me realizing like, I'm not preparing a sermon. Or we went to church and we sat down in church together.
Yeah.
Like I had to wait for a seat just like you had to wait for a seat. We all had to wait to be seated. So, I kind of feel like I'm a, what do you call it? Like a kid going to an amusement park for the first time.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole brand new experience that I'm embracing. So
right.
There's no regret. There's no like sitting there like, dang, I wish I was preaching or I wish I was in front. It just feels good to be a member.
Got it. Okay.
A visitor.
So it sounds as though you almost answered the next question that I have, which is what was the hardest part about leaving and what was the most freeing part?
No, that's a good question. So the hardest part about leaving is there's a few things for me. There was the feeling like I'm giving up or I'm letting somebody down. How to have that difficult conversation. And then there was the, this is like a new identity for me. Like because people have only known me as a pastor professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even still like, this new world that I'm just navigating in. Even though I'm still doing ministry stuff, I'm still preaching. People still, when they see us, they treat us like, first family or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just me accepting this new reality. And I think when I start working, when I start a 9 to 5, it's gonna be crazy, because these people that I'm gonna be working with, unless they go look up on YouTube, they'll know that I'm a pastor. So I'm just gonna be walking in there like Mr. Kalasar,
Mm-hmm.
not Pastor Kalasar, people trying not to curse or do whatever they do whenever I'm around.
Okay. So you would say that the most freeing part would be just kind of feeling normal or regular in a sense, without like that heaviness or that responsibility to preach, to lead in that way.
Yeah. Like, we've had our conversations from time to time, and I think I've expressed to you before, like, I just want to be a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know what it's like to be, and I don't want to say average, but I just want to know what it's like to be just somebody who has to wait to be seated,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody who has to wait online at church to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or just somebody who could sit down in church and just hear a word.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's the most freeing part, the most liberating part, the most exciting part.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that as well, that I'm looking forward to.
Okay. That sounds like an awesome thing to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
For us to all experience, because
Yeah.
it's not just you, but it's all of us experiencing this new norm
So
of such.
So I know you're interviewing me, but I do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is just real quick.
Okay.
For you, how did it feel on Sabbath to have me sit next to you for the whole service? Was that weird for you? Was that?
It wasn't weird. I think we have sat together in church before.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I don't know. I feel like my brain has not quite caught up with the reality of this being your reality.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? It's like a form. Like, we're sitting next to each other. It feels good. It feels nice.
Yeah.
It's just still very much like
brand
new.
Gotcha.
So I think I'm still going through the not the emotions, more or less like just going through the feels of what this is.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right.
Yeah. I don't think I've attached anything yet, but I'll definitely dive a little bit deeper next episode that we have.
Okay.
We'll be focusing on me and my perspective.
Right.
That was exciting.
That was my only question.
Okay. All right. You just snuck that one in.
Yeah. I had to sneak a little something.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So the next question I have is, all right. The next question I have is, how do you start rebuilding your sense of purpose outside of pastoring? Like where are you in that? Let me retract that. Where, or before you handed in your resignation, what did purpose look like for you, or fulfilling this purpose outside of pastoring? What did that look like for you before handing in your resignation?
It was, so, we've always talked about like this is a whole walk on water experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the walking on water experience, it's a lot of the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like before I handed in the resignation, I didn't have a clue or idea of what life would be like after.
Mm-hmm.
I had ideas of what I would like it to be, like I got a great job, a 6-figure job, I'm providing, we're taking vacations, we're traveling, like thoughts of all of that. but it's not really like that. So I think for me, it was just really just the only thing that I was really, really focused on was just being able to do something else that I feel wholeheartedly called to, and not feeling depressed, or not doing something that my heart wasn't truly in. So I was just looking forward to just like, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any more left in me. So yeah.
So
I don't know if I answered the question.
You did. I think you did answer it in a roundabout way, but I'm coming now to after now. That's what you were feeling before. Now you've handed in the resignation, signed, sealed, and delivered. How are you finding purpose now in today? Like how are you finding that purpose outside of pastoring? Is it connected to a job? Is it connected to reshifting or repurposing ministry, not it having to be where you are a lead pastor or even an assistant pastor, and like what does repurposing or not repurposing? What does your purpose look like outside of pastoring?
Oh man, so I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. I'm figuring it out.
Okay.
And while you were asking that question, I was literally thinking about it as like somebody who was in prison and they just got released.
Okay.
So it's almost like, you've been in prison for X amount of years, and then you finally get that day where it's like, yo, you're free to go. And then you walk out of prison and you're almost like, I gotta navigate this new world. So it's literally like the world that I've been, but I've got to navigate it now, not as a pastor of a church. And so it's really just me learning new things and figuring out things. Like one thing, so here's something, like I was fooled into thinking that I would have had a job by now, right? Like I thought like, okay, I'll finish pastoring, I'll hand in these resumes, go on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, all these websites, throw my resume out there. Somebody's going to see it. Somebody's going to say, I would have been getting calls for a few interviews. Yo, it's real out there. There have been more, we thank you for applying, but unfortunately we decided to go with somebody else. So I am thinking about saving up all of those things just as a testimony for all the various areas of rejection that I've never gotten. And so that's a new world for me. I've never been rejected like that.
Got it.
I've always been like, go anywhere. I've even had like, various conferences that would say, hey, why don't you come pastor for us? Or I've never had to apply for anything.
Well, at the beginning of your ministry.
At the beginning, right. But once I got in, I've never had to apply for anything.
Yeah.
It's always been like green light. I can kind of like move to every, if I said I wanted to like pastor in Florida, just pick up the phone, make a phone call. If I want to pastor in Maryland or wherever, pick up the phone, make a phone call. It is not like that anymore.
Yeah. Now, do you find, that's interesting. Do you find as though, like someone could easily say, hey, you left pastoring, and you're not finding a job. Is that somehow God's damnation on you for no longer being a pastor? Because some people may deem it or connect they think that you not finding a job is as a result of you leaving. Like those doors are not opening to other things. So that must be an indication. So how do you kind of like resolve that in your brain where it's like, this is not a punishment from God per se, but it can be whatever it is that you're about to respond and say.
Yeah. So it's not just other people saying that, it's me saying that in my brain too. So I've got to detox my mind of those thoughts to think that God wouldn't want me to be prosperous because I'm not doing what quote unquote he wants me to do. Right. So, I know that in the Bible, I've read about, God says above all things, I want you to be in good health, to be prosperous and in good health. Um, in ministry, and however you define prosperous, I didn't feel like I was being prosperous, nor was I in good health. And so that's why I don't look at me not getting a job immediately as God's damnation on me. I just look at it as God's way of saying that the waters are going to be rough. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
But I've got you. I'm going to take care of you. And He's been providing, right?
Oh, absolutely. God, we thank you.
Yeah, He's been providing. But I think God, and I think it's the same thing like somebody who's been in prison for so long.
Yeah.
They're coming out and they think the world is still the world they left when they got locked up.
Yeah.
Now they out in the real world. It's almost like, oh,
what's
snap.
happening?
You got a whole computer on your phone, right? This is different. We didn't do this before. Like, even like what's funny too is like the last time I looked for a job was when you can go into a store and fill out an application, a piece of paper, and hand it back in.
Yeah.
Everything now is, and that's funny because I went in a few stores that asked for like, do you need help?
And they're
I'm sure they probably looked at me like, dude, did you really just get out of prison?
Right.
They were like, oh, go online. And look there. So I was like, okay. So it's those kind of reality checks. But I just know that one thing is that I just feel mentally free. I just feel like there's not a heavy weight on my shoulder right now. And I'm embracing it. So, it's constantly just telling myself, because I can second guess myself.
Yeah. And
say like, man, maybe I need to go back to pastoring because I know that so well. Or do I push myself to learn something new, to make myself marketable, also available to be able to do this job? And I'll just insert this as well, that when you're trained, what I'm discovering, when you're trained to be an Adventist minister, your training doesn't translate outside of Adventism.
Yeah.
You're like pigeonholed.
That, yeah.
And I think
I was about to say that. Yeah, that's true.
And then I think a lot of pastors stay in it because it's almost like, what else I'm going to do? The only other alternative is chaplaincy.
Yeah.
And I think for so long, that's what I always thought in my brain, that I can't do nothing else, that this is all I'm called to do.
Yeah.
And it's not going to translate in a different world. Because like to some of my Sunday brethren, they have degrees in other areas. And then they picked up pastoring or they got a theology degree or they went to seminary.
Yeah.
For me, my whole training has been theological. And not just theological, it's Adventist theology.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really translate in other spaces. So I think that's also like one of the things that kept me in pastoral ministry so long because
you're like, what else am I gonna do?
What else am I gonna do? And then in undergrad, back in my day when I went to school, if you did another degree, that was questioning your calling. So they would say, why are you taking a business degree? Don't you think God is going to have a job for you when you get out? So, in my brain, psychologically, I'm like, no, I can't do nothing else because God called me to this and God's going to take care of me. And so now that I'm at 45, I don't have skills that most 45-year-olds have to be able to work somewhere else. And let me not say I don't have skills. I have the skills. Because, as a pastor, you do finance, budget, you're doing operation, project management, all of that stuff. But it doesn't translate on your resume. You don't have, you can't say I've managed the singles ministry department. People are like, what is that in the real world? So it's almost like you become pigeonholed and stuck in some way. So I'm sorry. No, I was talking for a while.
No, it's good. I think while you were talking, I actually thought about when you decided to take the call of ministry, it took about 5 years before you were able to find a job in ministry, right? Like it wasn't one of those things where God, this is my calling. this is my calling, and I know that you're going to make a way and open the door.
Right.
You had to go to school, not sponsored. And for those of you who are watching, essentially, maybe you can explain it better. I'm not a...
Yeah. So in seminary, there's always two groups. There is the sponsored group and the unsponsored group. Sponsored group were the ones that were, the conference sent them. So the conference
So they
would
were
give them a
hired,
stipend. They
right?
were basically hired. Yeah, that's the key word. They were hired, and the conference gave them a stipend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the conference also paid for their education.
Correct.
So they had a certain amount of time that they had to finish, and they would finish, and they would come out and get a job. I was part of the unsponsored group, which took out loans to go through the seminary and got out of the seminary and did not have a call from a conference.
Yeah, I think it was maybe about a year.
Yeah, it was about a year.
And change, a year and a
yeah.
half before
Right.
you were able to get a call from a conference. And that call was basically one of those who knew you.
Right.
Who it's who you
That's
know.
right. That's right.
It's
That's
who
right.
you know, essentially, just like in the world,
Yep.
outside the Adventist or outside of the church. It's who you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a point too, because you could have easily been like, I'm good. Yes, I feel called, but no one is calling me to
Right.
work in any of the churches.
Right. Right. And speaking to that thing about calling, I definitely believe that if I was exposed to other ways that I can fulfill ministry or fulfill, like, my whole thing was I just wanted to be in a position to help people, not see people suffer. I think I've always had like a justice, equity kind of bone within my body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that the only way for me to live out that feeling I had, that calling, was in pastoral ministry.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if I was exposed to other careers that do the same thing, I probably would not have chosen pastoral ministry.
Okay.
Yeah. I probably would have chosen to do something else. I would have probably chosen to do community organizing. I would have probably chosen to work my way to work in the United Nations, right? And humanitarian, to do something like that. But pastoring was the only thing that I was exposed to that I felt that this is the only way that I can fulfill that calling. And so I think in the first episode, when I was saying I was questioning my calling, and the reason why I was questioning it, I said that was because you always hear people would say, to whenever you feel distracted or whenever you feel discouraged, always go back to your why. And that will steer you back.
Yes.
But I'm always wondering, like, was I really called to be a pastor?
Wow.
Or was I called to administer equity and justice and other things like that, right? And so I'm always circling that in my head, because I feel like the type of personality I have, and when I felt like as a pastor, you gotta fight. You gotta walk that thin line of either being loved or being hated. And they always say most times it's the ones that's hated that have the most respect. The ones that are loved, they don't get the most respect, and they're oftentimes, stepped upon. And I don't think that I've ever always fought to want to be the one that's loved, but I know that I value relationships, and there was a lot of times when I'm pastoring, I'm just like, yo, I don't want to fight no more. I don't want to put out fires anymore. I don't want to be a politician anymore. I don't want to go to the hospital. All those things that come with being a pastor, I didn't really want to do those things anymore. And I don't know if it's because I was burnt out or it's just something I didn't want to do, but I just started becoming jaded.
Yeah, I think it was if I'm being honest, looking at it from my point of view, I think you were burnt out. Because I think in the beginning, pastoring, you enjoyed those things.
Sure.
Right? You would go to the hospitals, you would visit, your members, you would do different things, and you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
For the most part, you enjoyed being with members and creating programs and allowing them to see God in a very practical way, and how you brought to life the scripture. I feel like you definitely enjoyed it. And I know especially when you would, where you felt like God was telling you, like, this is the program. Cause at your core, you're a visionary.
Yeah.
Like you are able to, sometimes I stand amazed at the things that you come up with and the way that you can cast a vision and know it almost to a T what you want it to look like, what you want it to feel like, all the things. That's what really bring purpose and brings you alive. That's where you come alive.
Yeah.
And you definitely did have that. I think in the burnout, as we spoke to about last week, I feel that you were no longer able to be creative because you were fighting battles that did not make you feel, or did not bring those passions and the passion of being able to cast vision and to be a creative. I think it kind of stifled you because the focus no longer became about you creating, but more or less like it's the same thing over and over and over, right? You're fighting the same battles.
Yeah. I would 1000% agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
Yes, and yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of my tiredness was because of the suppression of my creativity.
Correct.
Or the suppression of what I felt like I should be in pastoral ministry,
mm-hmm.
but there's no room for people like me.
No.
There's no space
No.
for me. There's probably it's like I felt like I was tolerated,
mm-hmm.
right? And maybe because I was able to preach, that's why maybe I was tolerated for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like, I agree, you either have to be, I just felt like you have to be within the Adventist ministry, you have to be one type. You have to be one type.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be multiple types or a different type. Like you can't be a social justice pastor.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a social justice pastor plus evangelist plus evangelist
mm-hmm.
and plus pastor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't have a special niche where it's almost like, okay, you do social justice, just do that.
Yeah.
We're gonna carve out for you to just do that. No, but you gotta do
Yes.
all these other things, and all the other things I was not.
And then you're placed in environments, right, where unfortunately it's not necessarily accepted or it's not received as well as you need it to be.
Yeah.
Where it's not, you're landing on fertile land, you're landing on land that's like, wait, we just want you to pastor. We just want you to preach the good old sermons
and baptize
and raise money and all the things. That's the kind of environment, unfortunately for you, a creative.
Yeah.
It stifles you and it does not bring you joy or happiness.
Yeah.
So I could imagine for you, if I dare say, if you were placed in a different environment, right, where you had the support, you had the resources, you had the people in your space to be able to catch the vision and to cast it. Oh my gosh, you thrive in those situations because when you think about the churches that you pastored, right, there were moments where it was just like, yo, you were on your ish. Like, you were like, I used to sit back and be like, yo, that's my man, because I used to literally sit in awe of, your ability to dream up something amazing and it's something amazing and something different, something that goes against right? The status quo. And so that's tiring if you're constantly creating and then it's not necessarily falling in a place where creativity continues to thrive, but actually it's killing it.
Yeah, because like being a justice pastor is not enough.
Mm-mm.
And I used to think that it would be enough because you remember when I was talking about the fact that you have to go to workers meeting, and go into workers meeting, you have to get up and you have to say how many people you baptized. Like if you get up there and you say, you know what, I didn't baptize anybody, but I was part of a team that helped people get heat during the winter. Or I was a part of a team of a group of pastors, not in the Adventist church, and we fought for these individuals to open their own supermarket, or we cleaned up the neighborhood or do something like that. I personally don't feel like that's important to administration. I think they'll be like, that's wonderful, that's nice, but where are your baptisms?
Right. What's the bottom line?
Or your tithe decreased, or your tithe has been decreasing for the last few months. So, so I think that's where my tiredness came because, and I think I also want to make the point that I'm not mad at the church for not seeing it or not investing in it or not anything. I just saw it as I don't fit here. And I don't fit into what their bottom line is. Like I look at my brothers who are like Myron and his men's ministry and, Troy and his financial ministry and stuff, the financial stuff he's doing. And I'm not speaking for them to say that they weren't celebrated or they weren't appreciated or that anybody else who has something else that they're doing on the side. I'm not speaking on behalf of them, but I just see things like that. And I'm like, I wish that the church or the administration or the organization would see certain gifts and talents in people and say, let's invest in that part of you because I see there's happiness in you. I see you thrive at this. And here, we're going to pull you out of pastoring a church and we'll figure something out, or we'll figure out how to do this, but let's find a way to invest in that gift. Because I think that if you're a good writer and I'm your president, I'm your boss, then I'm going to say, you know what? You got a gift at writing. Take some time off and write some books. I feel like that would make me as a president look great to know that, we just helped one of the greatest authors in Christian literature to get off their feet and to invest in that. And so those are some of the things that I was just like, like you always say, go where you feel like you belong, not where you're tolerated. And I just felt like I was being tolerated. And it makes you tired. So,
it does.
Yeah, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to just go where I'm celebrated.
I think, what do you wish churches understood about the realities of being a pastor?
Ooh. I think a lot of members. So here it is, right? There are a lot of members. There's 99% and then there's 1%. I think 99% understand that pastoring is, and I'm just being abroad, it's a high number, but I'm going to say 99% understand that pastoring is a difficult job. It's a tiring job, at least for the ones that really work, right? There's some that don't do nothing. But for the ones that's out in the community, the ones that's really trying, I think a lot of members understand it's a tiring job. But then you have that 1%. That 1% that always complains, that 1% that always cantankerous, that 1% that's never happy no matter what you do. And that 1% is often the loudest group. Because I feel like when people like something, they tend not to complain, right? They just get what they want, they go home. Also think too, when people have a life, and they have things going on,
Right.
they ain't got no time for that church politics or church departments and things like that.
Right.
They just get a word, thank you, pastor, and go home.
Mhm.
It's the people that have a lot of home hurt. It's the people that have a lot of trauma, a lot of stress. Those are the ones that oftentimes cause problems in the church.
Mhm.
And what happens is, what you want as a pastor is you want the 99% to shut down that 1%.
Mhm.
Because that 1% is the one that's calling the conference office. That 1% is the one that's sending the emails to the president, to the ministerial director. That 1% is having meetings with people to put you down and to talk about you and all that other stuff. But what happens is sometimes the 99% don't drown that 1% out.
Mhm.
And as much as a pastor, you try to ignore that 1%, it always rings in your head. And it makes you tired because whatever the 1% is saying about you is probably, one, not true. Number two, it's not who you are. And number three, you're trying to like figure out, why in the world do you hate me so much?
Mhm.
Like, and why in the world are you thinking about me that much?
Mhm.
And I wish that church members would know that protect your pastor, and protect them from that 1%.
Mhm.
That and that's the thing, they
they
know who that person is.
Those are the people, and they know that they show up to church every Sabbath.
They never get sick. They are always healthy.
Mhm.
And they are known for making the pastor's life a living hell.
Mhm.
They know it,
Mhm.
but they don't do anything about it. Conference administration sometimes doesn't do anything about it because these people sometimes have money. Sometimes these people have influence. And so rather than doing what's right, they just kind of turn the other cheek.
Mhm.
And then they keep giving them opportunities. They keep giving them opportunities so that they could spew their hate. And I wish that we would encourage people like that to get therapy, because it's obvious that you have issues, personal issues, life issues.
Mhm.
And so that's why sometimes I would never get mad at the 1%, because I would look at them and say, you know what? Your problem isn't me.
Mhm.
Your problem is something that's going on in your own life that you need to deal with. And I'm not a therapist.
Mhm.
I'm not that person. I'm just trying to do the best job that I can. So in a nutshell, handle them people, because that stuff messes with our psyche, especially when you know you're not that person.
Mhm.
Especially for me, when I know I'm not that person. I don't have a malicious bone in my body. I don't try to like down anybody or talk about people behind their back or put them down. And to hear, certain things like that being said about you, and you can't, sometimes you want to punch them in the face, but you can't do that. You always got to be the Christ-like person. You can't come out of character. And I'll just sit there and be like, yo, this person's crazy. This is what they have a history of doing.
Track
record. And nobody says anything about them. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think one of the realities of being a pastor is that should be understood by members is your pastor needs reprieve.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
And reprieve could look different for every pastor, but prioritizing a pastoral care team in the church to be able to cater to just a select group of people who's just really intentional about making sure that the pastor is good.
Yes, a pastoral care team that is for the pastor. Not a pastoral care team that's coming up with their own ideas of what they think the pastor wants. You need a pastoral care team who will ask the pastor, what do you want?
Yeah.
Right? Not you like, oh, we know what he wants.
And
you buy him an air fryer. And you're like, I don't need no air fryer.
Thanks.
We want you an air fryer for your office.
But it's more not necessarily like spending money in that way, but more prioritizing the needs of a pastor and kind of looking for the signs of when your pastor's tired,
Right.
right? If your pastor's not showing up or he's not as present, instead of talking about him and saying, you know, pastor don't show up to this or pastor don't show up to that, be like, yo, pastor, you good?
Yeah.
Or, you know, just creating an environment where your pastor feels cared for. I think that's the word. Like cared for. You know, we look at other denominations and of course we always say we're Adventist and we don't want to look at other denominations and stuff like that. But best believe some denominations, they take care of their pastors.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the care where, you know, you're holding the pastor up on this pedestal and it's like, but there's a level of care and concern for your pastor that she or he is in need of.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. And it's something that you said that triggered something in me. So I've been reading the comments from the last two episodes, and even the reel that you put up. And in that, some comments that I saw, it was that some people knew it was coming. They saw it coming. And then there were some people that said, we knew it was coming because we saw it on your face.
Wow.
Like, and I think it was more than one person who said that. It's almost like they knew it was coming because they just looked at me and they could tell I had checked out. And the thing that you said about a pastoral care team is that you need a pastoral care team who observes that. That's pastoral care.
Yeah.
Who can observe. Do you see how he's looking?
Right.
Something's going on. He needs a reprieve.
Mm-hmm.
He needs a break. And, you know, I'm not saying that I wish somebody had said something to me, but you would hope that that's what your ministerial director or your president, or let me just say your conference officials would just observe and just say, something's up with you because who you were before is not translating the same way. You're not moving the same. Something is, come in my office. There's a shift. Come in my office. Let's sit down and talk. And so I would say that, you know, I don't know of any administration that does that, but I would think that churches, they need to, I think that pastoral care team is important.
Yeah.
I think for that point, because like now that I'm reading comments and people are like I want to know when they saw my face that I checked out. How did I look? Like, because I know my body language at times was like, yo.
Yeah, I'm done.
You know, like, yeah, I'm done. Like I would sit down on that front pew or wherever it was, and I would just take a deep breath and go, all right, gotta go do this. I'm employee number what? Get up there, preach, and as soon as I'm done, I want to go straight to the car and just leave. I don't want to talk. I don't want to do nothing. So it's like I would just muster up enough strength to do the certain acts. Do the board meeting, do the business meeting, do the preaching. Put on a smile, put on my work face, put on my work attitude, and then when I'm done, I'm depleted, I'm finished, and I'm out. But it seems that my work face, my work, everything, it just, there's but so much you can hide.
Yeah. After a while, it definitely begins to tell on you.
Right.
And it begins to wear on you. And yeah, this would be a great time for me to, like, if we were talking about my experience, I guess I can interject this piece of pastoral burnout doesn't just affect the pastor. Of course, it affects the church. It affects all those things. But I feel like it more affects the people that see you outside of the responsibility of sitting, standing, leading.
Yeah, the four walls.
After you've walked down and after you've come into the car, after knowing how you were feeling before you got there and after you got there. And it's a cycle of the same thing,
Yeah.
how it wears on the family. But that's for next week.
Yeah.
That's for next week.
Yeah.
That's a little
Yeah.
thing. But I think that is super important. So as we kind of begin to wrap up this conversation, Jaime, what advice would you give to pastors who are struggling with burnout, shifting beliefs, or toxic church culture but feel trapped?
Well, I would just say, I think if you're struggling with burnout, take a break. Number one. I think you need to take a break.
But how do you take a break if the culture does not call for you to take a break?
Well, look, I think in the meantime, you got things that's like, I don't know. It's like you fixed your mic, I didn't fix my mic. So I think, just hold it like this. I think that you've got things like vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Take your vacations. I think that's one of the things that I didn't do enough of. Mm-hmm. I would just keep working, and not taking the vacations that were allotted to me. And, and there's nobody that's going to be like, hey, you didn't take your vacation this year. You can roll it over. Just roll it over into the next year. So I would say take your vacations. I'll also say that I think every person is going to have to choose what's important to them. And for me, I chose my family. I chose my health. Mm-hmm. I chose my family and my health. Mm-hmm. And I always have God first. So I think that you're going to have to decide what's important to you, right? If the work of pastoring is stressing you out, if you are depressed, if you are burdened, if you are tired, if you find yourself just reading the Bible as a textbook, or you don't have any passion or desire to do it and your heart's not 100% in it, then I think you need to fall to your knees and ask God truly, what does he want for you and for your life, right? My advice would be to constantly be in communion with God. And if you're married, with your spouse or whomever that person is that you trust or you talk to, whether it be a therapist or somebody that you need to be communicating with them about what's going on with you. Because one of the things with being a pastor, it's so sad. We don't really have anybody to talk to. Mm-hmm. You can't talk to, you have to be careful because you can't talk to other pastors, because sometimes other pastors will use what you say to them against you. Mm-hmm. You can't talk to your members because your members might talk about you to other members. Mm-hmm. And then, the thing with your spouse is you don't want to talk to your spouse because you don't want to burden your spouse with your problems. Mm-hmm. So you carry all this weight by yourself. You carry all this weight in your head, and you don't have a place to release. And then sometimes when you do release, you release into something toxic. Mm-hmm. You make rash decisions because you don't have anybody to bounce things off of. So it's just you and your head going back and forth. So I would encourage you to find somebody to talk to, somebody that you could confide in, to really express how you truly feel. But, if this is, because one thing I realized with pastoral ministry is that I am not irreplaceable. Mm-hmm. I think, I've pastored maybe 5 or 6 churches. Mm-hmm. And yes, they will miss you dearly when you leave. They will love you while you're there. But once you leave, that administration will find somebody else to put in that space, and everybody will move on.
Yeah, just like a regular job.
Just like a regular job. Mm-hmm. It's just like a regular job. And so I had to get to the point where I was like, I'm killing myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm not spending time with you all. I am out here doing this, doing that, all this other stuff. And then by the time I retire, within 5 years, I'm going to die. Mm-hmm. And to realize I am replaceable. Mm-hmm. They will find somebody else. Mm-hmm. They will get somebody else to put in that position And so, I had to come to that grips, and that reality was that, yes, it is wonderful to be the best that you can be, to work as hard as you can, to do what you need to do. But at the end of the day, you only have yourself in your name. Yeah. And my health was deteriorating. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? I'm 45. I still got a good amount of years in front of me to live. And that's what I chose. I chose that I want to live. Mm-hmm. Will I come back to pastoral ministry? Only time will tell. But I know for me in this season right now, I had to step away. It was a long time coming. I needed to choose God, my family, and my health, and not wealth, and not just a check. Mm-hmm. So I hope that helps somebody who's listening. And, I hope that you can walk in the path that God is calling you to do, right? That if you don't feel like you fit in the Adventist box of what they want or what they require, you've got a unique gift, you've got a unique talent, you've got a unique ministry. And if you see yourself, God called you to that, then why would you kick against the pricks? Mm-hmm. Go forth and go do it. Yeah. And walk on water and trust God to lead the way.
Oof. That is a lot you said, but I think it's necessary. It's necessary. And I think one of the things I would add on is to find community. Mm-hmm. Whatever that community looks like. It could be in the church or outside of the church, but find a life outside of it, and also try to figure out other ways that you can become marketable in doing other things. If you are burnt out and if you're in an environment where you just don't feel like you belong, I think it's important to, whatever the next step is, everyone always falls back, or pastors usually fall back on chaplaincy.
Yeah. Yeah. And to some, that's fine, because it's a 9 to 5. And sure, some people want to do that, they like that.
But I'm just saying, like, it's almost like it's either this or that. Yeah. There's never like an exploration of, let's see what else I can do to kind of create my own, right? Where it doesn't, I'm not saying to create your own church or whatever, but to create whatever your passion is outside of what isn't allowing you to. Yeah. So you can still stay, of course, but you can probably reshift your passion and your gifting into something or somewhere else that feeds it and not kills it.
Yeah, and two things. I know we're closing out. 2 things I just want to add to that. One is, it's difficult, it's scary, because I'm thinking about myself. I'm 45, mm-hmm. and who's gonna teach this old dog new tricks? Yeah. Right? And you're battling that war in your mind. Is like, yo, I'm 45. I should be thinking about my preparation for retirement. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, my preparation for retirement. Not thinking about changing a whole new career at this stage. And then the other thing with pastoring in the Adventist community and the Adventist world is that word you said, community. One of the most scary things, one of the most difficult things, is leaving that community that you've been in so long. Mm-hmm. And the way that it has felt to me is that if you leave this plantation and you run out there for freedom, you ain't gonna survive unless old master is paying you. Mm-hmm. So you might as well stay here with all the rest of us. And you might as well put your head down, because we don't know what's across that river over there. You go take your chances. You could run out there. I'm telling you, flesh, for me, it's good right here. Mm-hmm. I guess me a nice little wage. I guess me, a nice little insurance, I guess, me a little health coverage. But you go and take your own smart self and run on over there. See what it's gonna get you. That's how I feel. Like, you like, man, I want to leave.
You about to take me out with this voice.
I want to leave, but I just be scared to leave because I just can't do nothing but stay right here. Right? I know I'm making a joke out of it, but I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes that's how you think. You can't do that. And then there's some people in ministry that will tell you, boy, don't make that mistake. Mm-hmm. Don't make no mistake and leave. You better stay right here. This is where the grass is green over here. You don't know what's out there, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that battle as well. And I think that's why you said community. Mm-hmm. It is good for you to have community within and community outside.
Yes.
Yeah. And people that can say, come over here. We got you. We're going to take care of you. It may not be like what it was before, but you're going to be all right. Because you have transferable skills that you have picked up all these years doing this, mm-hmm. that you can still do ministry, you can still do whatever, and you can be phenomenal and still build the kingdom of God mm-hmm. outside of this little box.
Amen.
So, yeah.
Amen. So, I think your this episode is called Purpose.
Fine. Purpose Beyond the Pulpit.
Purpose Beyond the Pulpit.
Yeah, and the reason why I said that is because, when I was thinking about purpose behind the pulpit, because for me, I thought my only purpose can be fulfilled behind the pulpit. Mm-hmm. So what does it look like when you're not always behind the pulpit? Can I still fulfill my purpose and my calling outside of a pulpit? I'm not having to go back to a pulpit. So I think too, another point, a lot of me leaving is because I got a point to prove to myself. Not to prove to anybody else, Amen. Not to show anybody, Amen. But I need to prove to myself that I can be as powerful, as much of a force, of a change, of a catalyst, not just in these four walls. Yeah. But can I do it outside?
That's good.
Can God come with me
That's good.
in this space?
That's good.
Can God move with me here? Or does God only use me here? So I need to, it's not that I'm testing God, but I want to prove God in other spaces. Mm-hmm.
And that's good, because I feel as though if you said that God can only use me in this box, right? I feel like you're putting limitations not only on yourself, but on God's unlimited ability to use us no matter where we are. Right. And so for us to say that your purpose can only be fulfilled in a pulpit, I feel it is almost so, it's a terrible thing. Right. If you really think about it, it's a terrible thing. And I think finding this adventure that you're on, and I see it as an adventure of finding purpose and even redefining what purpose is truly for you, not based off of what other people are leading you to, but it's essentially what you hear and you know for sure that this is where God is leading you. And I'm grateful for the fact that when we think about this walk with God, this walk is not everybody and their mother. Right. This is a you and God walk. So whatever potential things people are saying, because we definitely got texts from sharing about, I guess they're disheartenment and stuff like that for you leaving, and what does that look like, and kind of crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. But I feel like this path that you are on, like most of us, is an individual one. Yeah. And it should be where you are focusing on what your purpose is beyond the pulpit. Yeah. I'm excited to see where God is going to lead you. I'm excited to see this come alive, Jaime, in this new space, because I truly felt and I'm gonna leave it for next week.
No.
What I truly felt going through that with you. So it sounds like we're gonna have to come back again and talk through about what I felt, what my perspective is or was as you were kind of as we were walking this journey together.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I hope y'all are looking forward to it. And so we thank y'all for rocking with us.
Yes.
And thank you for your questions. Your questions were dope. And appreciate it. So, like, look, man, you know, we are streaming extremely exclusively on YouTube, putting clips up on Facebook. So, if you're watching us on YouTube, just hit the like, hit the share, put some comments on there. We want some feedback. And then I believe next week we'll be live, right? So that's going to be good. So, your conversation is going to be live.
Okay.
Recording. So, I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so.
Yeah, this has been great. Again, we appreciate the outpouring of love and support. I'm sure it should be coming from you more.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is truly your story to tell. So I'll let you lead with that.
Yeah, just thank you to everybody who has listened. I think that's what I care the most about. That people have listened. Like they didn't just focus on, oh, he left or they left. I'm not saying he left because we're a team.
Yeah.
That we left. That you are listening to the reasons and you're listening to our hearts.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone who has had kind words, who has said, yo, you know, God's going to use you mightily in these different spaces. Shout out to all of you for your encouragement. And shout out to everybody who didn't say anything negative, that the Lord blocked your...
Bridled your tongue.
Yeah, bridled your tongue. He messed with your fingers, he messed with your Wi-Fi, your cell phone service.
Oh my God.
Shout out to you as well. But nevertheless, we appreciate all of you for rocking with us, for tuning in. And we're constantly working on making things better. I hope you notice that like our lights are better. Oh, I forgot to shout out Charles. So as you can see, we got some lights here. We're gonna keep working on this stuff to get it perfect, or to get it as good as we want it to be. But shout out to Charles.
Yes.
Charles at Revision. I'm gonna put his information in the chat. But he does video editing, he does lighting. So if you're in the Atlanta area, Georgia area, he'll come to where you are.
I mean, you might travel to other parts.
He might, use him, utilize him. The dude is a beast, and he truly hooked us up. So, yeah, that's it.
I also want to shout out my girl, Tony Estes, who I'm wearing her hat, one of the hats from her collection. I will definitely post the link to her store. I have a few other pieces from her collection, but this hat is almost like, yo, you guys don't see this hat all the time.
Yeah.
This hat right here is definitely super comfortable, super dope, and just in this season of supporting our own and continuing to support our own when others aren't supporting who we are or, fulfilling their promises that they had to our community. So it's important for us to give back and put back into our own. So we're definitely posting those links, and we just thank y'all for rocking with us. We truly appreciate y'all. And so this is Carlene.
This is Jaime.
Peace.
3, 2, 1.